Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited for today's conversation. Melissa McGaughey.
Yes.
Did I do it right?
You did.
For everybody listening, I've been stressing about your last name for like the last 2 weeks since we had it booked. McGaughey. It's such a great last name. It just is spelled differently. But I'm super excited to pick your brain. So I've known you, our paths have crossed a few times now over the last few years. We've kind of shared some experience in the agency space and the, ultra running and trail running. And we were just swapping some stories off camera about road running, horror stories and, the misery loves company type stuff. But for everybody listening, Melissa is a sports nutritionist. You're a small business owner.
Yes.
You own Endura Life.
Yes.
You're also, though, a health coach, a fitness trainer, a mom, a wife, a community leader, so many things.
Yes.
And I told you when I was, trying to recruit you to let me pick your brain that I'm especially excited to, talk to you about the nutrition side of things. I think it's something where I certainly have a lot to learn. So this is definitely a little bit of a selfish endeavor for me. But before we dive into that, I'd love to hear some of your background and a little bit of your story, because I know that a whole lot of work has come into getting you to where you are today, both from the business side of it, but also your physical fitness and, the nutrition side of it and all of that.
Right.
Take me back to the beginning. Where did all of this start? What kind of piqued your interest and started you down this health and wellness path is what I'll call it?
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of a quicker version, not to bore everyone, but growing up as a child, I was kind of an overweight child. If I would say that out loud in front of my daughter now, I don't like to use those words in front of her, but I was an overweight child, and I did not know anything about health, nutrition. My parents didn't teach me that. So getting into high school and college, I kind of started to pay attention to it a little bit more. And then it kind of turned and went the opposite direction to where I got unhealthy because I wasn't fueling my body properly, and went down the wrong path that way. So kind of fast forward into, 20s and 30s, I started, got married, wanted to have a child, was in the corporate America where I was traveling all the time. I was working in the promotional products industry and decided that if I wanted to continue to move forward and try to have a child, then I wasn't going to be able to travel like I did. So I started my own business, not the nutrition business, but started my own promotional products business. And then still following along the path of health and wellness, I was so interested in it. And so whenever I decided to, or whenever we got pregnant, I decided to go back to school and follow my passion of health and nutrition and become a holistic health coach.
So you went back to school while pregnant?
Actually, right after my daughter was born. So she was 1. I still managed my promotional product business, had a baby, and went back to school for nutrition.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot. Of course, we don't do anything halfway.
That's a problem that we both have.
Right. Yes.
I think that's interesting. What about, do you think that it was becoming a mother that sort of reignited the passion and the excitement for nutrition and health and well-being? And tell me more about that.
Definitely, because I wanted to be a good role model for my daughter and then for others around me. So I wanted to make sure that I was healthy and well and energetic and just could be a good role model and a good example. So that's why I decided to do that. And then along the path, whenever I finished school to be a holistic health coach, being a marathon runner and in the sports industry, I was also a fitness trainer at that time. I decided, well, I really want to know more about sports nutrition. So then I went to a different school to become a sports nutritionist and personal trainer.
I also think it's interesting. I want to dive more into that, but you had mentioned just previous to that, kind of coming from, and I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, but maybe a family with less than ideal lifestyle choices as far as diet and nutrition and things like that. I always think it's fascinating when I get to talk to somebody that has broken a chain, somebody that's sort of, changed generational norms or things like that. It's one of the things that I think is most admirable about people, because it's so easy to say, this is how it's our genetics, or this is how it's always been, or whatever. Walk me through your mindset there. I want to know more about you, where that came from, that desire to break those norms or start create new norms for your family.
Right. So I just knew that food I still follow the concept of food is fuel. So food is fuel for our bodies to get us through our activities that we do throughout the day. And growing up, you know, we ate, and maybe you were the same, but we ate convenience, fast food, junk food, whatever was there in front of us, because that's what we had. But I had to learn the hard way and learn to teach my family that if you just put a little bit of effort into it, you can have healthier meals that are going to fuel you better and make you feel better throughout the day and throughout your life. And I still, you know, with having like back injuries, for instance, back injuries run in my family. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, that could just be genetics. But really, it's not. If we take care of our bodies and do the work that we need to do, the mobility, the strengthening, all of that, we don't have to live by the same philosophy that our parents did. Well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Which I admire that so much. I didn't know that about your story. And so I'm even more excited now to dive in a little bit. Because that's, I actually, so we were just talking, you ran the Silverton Alpine last year. Yes. I ran it this year, which for me was just 2 days ago. And you were talking about that I'm moving pretty well. I measured my sleep with my watch on the night of it. And it was like, our bodies are so incredible when we're good to them.
Right.
And then they're good to us back. And I've been working quite a bit on like changing my mindset with my relationship with my body and my health in general, just in the sense that like I'm starting to view exercise as a celebration of what I get to do, what I can do, you know, not what I have to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
And just how powerful that side of it. But I definitely feel like I have tons of room to learn and grow from the nutrition side of it. I'll just share you a little bit of how little I know and how steep my learning curve has been. I stopped drinking alcohol last June. So I'm closing in on 13 months without alcohol. And that was it was a catalyst moment for me in my life, because I just noticed that, well, for one, I started running more, probably because I had to process stuff more instead of just drinking. But I started running a lot more. I started getting better at running. I started recovering faster. And it started to make me kind of think about these things that we put into our bodies and, you know, the way we're treating ourselves. I also just this year started taking better supplements, one of which being protein. Hadn't taken protein at all since this year. And those two things, cutting out alcohol and intentionally increasing my protein intake, and I'm like, holy cow. I'm feeling I used to you're going to laugh at me. So I've always exercised hard. That's always been one thing it's never been a problem. I always exercise hard. I would crash at the end of the days, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I would just be like literally lethargically sleepy. Started drinking protein, and what a surprise! All of a sudden, I have more energy through the end of the day and stuff like that. So anyway, all of that to say, this is where I've actually been, like when I messaged you, how excited I am on the nutrition side of it. So I'd love to hear from you, because one of the things I want to be cautious about, and I've been kind of intentionally down this self-improvement, you know, kind of like, you know, whatever journey that I've been on. And with that comes whole new Instagram algorithms, circles of influences and whatever. So I'm stoked to have a voice of authority in front of me, because there's so many times when like I'll get conflicting information, you know, on like a little Instagram snippet bit or these things like that. Let's start with the basics. Most fundamental, you know, dietary needs for somebody that's active and, you know, I would say consider themselves an athlete. What should a simple basic kind of foundational diet look like?
Real food.
Real food.
Yes. And I feel
Define real food for me.
So anything that comes from the earth.
So
fruits, vegetables, protein, whole grains, anything that's real food that comes from the earth. I think, again, talking about going back to my childhood, it was all fast food, convenience food, that kind of thing. Things that come in a package, things that come in the freezer. And not to say that some of those things are not real food, but a lot of them have so many additives, have added sugar, all the things that just are hard for our body to digest and hard for us to process, which takes energy, right? So that's taking energy away from the things that we do throughout the day.
Of course.
So if we're just eating real whole food, then that's kind of the foundation.
Okay. That was simpler than I expected,
Yep.
but in a good way.
So my
whole food.
tagline for my business, Endura Life Fitness and Nutrition, whole foods for endurance and life. If we're eating real whole foods, then that's going to give us endurance and give us energy to get through the things that we need to for the day.
Yeah. Do you put much weight on like organic versus not, or where it's sourced, anything like that?
I like to start with the basics with people. If they're already eating organic, yes. But if they're not eating organic, let's just start by eating fruits and vegetables and protein and whole grains. If they are eating organic, yes. I eat organic and eat food that comes from our location most of the time, but obviously that's not always possible.
Yeah. Do you eat wild game meat by chance?
I do sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been interested about that. I'm a big hunter.
Yeah.
And so it's always been a little bit of a lifestyle thing for me more than I don't know. I don't hunt for the nutrition reason.
But it's so, like, talk about protein.
Yeah. That's
fantastic.
And I have been a meat hunter, to clarify, I hunt for meat, but I've never, done it because I wanted I want good quality lean meat, but not knowing much of, the differences behind it. Are there things like that people should look out for that's what we'd consider whole? Like I've heard from time to time to be looking out for it's an additive in chicken. What is it? Hormones. Yeah, stuff like that in meat.
I do, especially with chicken. I say organic if you can. That's the way to go because so many of our foods, if you notice now how kids are changing, they're going through puberty earlier, it's because of all of the hormones and things that are added to our foods now. So if you can get food without those added hormones and that kind of thing, I think it's really important.
Yeah. So I without being too dark, but we have chickens.
Okay.
And we get our eggs from our chickens, which I love. Oh, we had to move a while back, and so part of that process was that some of them turned into meat.
Oh, right.
And I was shocked at the size difference in a breast from my chicken that I raised than a chicken, it maybe an eighth of remarkably smaller.
Right, because all the other conventional chickens are fed hormones and to make them big, and because that's how we like it in the U.S.
Right.
Everything that's bigger and better, right?
And cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want more for less.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
So how do you approach, because how many kids do you have?
Just one.
One, okay. Mm-hmm. How do you approach your emphasis on diet and nutrition and motherhood and what you feed your family and your husband and your kid?
I love that
things
question
like that.
because everyone says, well, you're a nutritionist, your daughter must eat super healthy. And yes, she does eat healthy. I make sure that she has protein at every meal, vegetables. But again, she goes to school, she goes to friend activities, and so I'm not legalistic about it. She does ask, can I have this candy? And I'll say yes. She usually asks. But again, I'm not all or nothing. I feel like if we restrict too many things, then it's just going to spiral out of control. And when I'm not around, she'll have whatever she wants. So to me, I look at it as most things in moderation. Some things are kind of non-starters, but most things in moderation are okay.
What are the non-starters?
Well, I like to try to avoid food dyes if we can, but now that we're in the teenage years and she's eating candy, then I let it slide. Sometimes when she was younger, I didn't because I could see a huge difference in her mood whenever she would have food dyes.
Really?
But now that she's gotten older, I've noticed it's kind of leveled out a little bit. So
I want to learn more about that. Mm-hmm. I have 3 kids.
Right.
And I have my hands full. Mm-hmm. My dad would joke that I have the kids that I deserve.
Oh, okay.
They're amazing.
Yep.
But tell me about food dye. I don't know.
So a lot of times it can create huge mood swings and hyperactivity in kids. So a quick example is it was around Christmas time when we lived back in Dallas. We had gone somewhere and she had a candy cane. She was eating it in the back seat. She started eating it and 5 minutes later she just started freaking out, uncontrollable, screaming, crying, and I was like, nothing even happened. I was like, what in the heck is this coming from? And so then I just started to relate. I was like, oh, candy cane, red food dye. So every time she would have it, I would notice just a difference in her mood, her reactions to things. So I really taught her, let's look at the label on the nutrition label and look at the ingredients and see if it has food dyes. When she got older, I would say, you make the choice. You can, if you want to have it, fine, but let's just see how you react to it. And many times she would react really poorly or, have a mood swing or something. I don't notice as much anymore now that she's a teenager, but
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's from Red
Food Dye.
Red Food Dye.
I think it's Red number 40 is what it's called.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So what do we look out for? Like, is that widespread?
It's widespread. It's in so many things. You can even look at like sauces. Some ketchup even has it. It's obviously in most all candies.
Probably fruit snacks.
Fruit snacks, Gatorade. I think all the regular Gatorades, I think, have it. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I would just really look at food labels and do an experiment yourself. Maybe take one kid at a time and give them a piece. Well, the other kids will be mad if you give one kid candy, but just see how they react and notice if you see any difference.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question with kids. What would be, because, kids like, obviously, sweets.
Right.
And the easier thing as a parent a lot of the time is the packaged, frozen, sweet, whatever.
And don't get me wrong. Yeah, don't get me wrong. We have those things at my house.
Sure. Yeah. Nobody's perfect. In fact, it was funny. I had his episode comes out this week. Anthony Kunkel was on, and we had this whole 90-minute conversation about biohacking and optimizing our life and whatever. And then my wife was working, so I had to go pick up the kids, and we went to McDonald's because I'm like, what are you going to do? It's 7:00 on a Tuesday. Yeah. We're going to get everybody. So we're living in the real world, but. Assuming that we can make some better decisions, what would be the optimal, knowing that none of it's perfect, but like treats or rewards or types of things like that for kids?
Yep.
Where would you go? Where would you aim?
So honestly, I like to look at the food label and see what type of treat has the least amount of ingredients on the ingredient label.
Coming back to the whole food thing.
Right.
I got it.
And then start there. So if you think about, even when you're looking at granola bars, a lot of them have so many additives and so many extra things to them and even when they're marketed as healthy, they're not truly healthy when you look at the label. So I like to start there by looking at the labels. I also like to make treats at home. So that they're homemade. But again, we don't always have the luxury of doing that, especially when we work and all the things.
The only reason I run as much as I do is so I can eat my wife's homemade cookies.
There you go. See, so your wife's homemade cookies, that would be a good treat.
Better than nothing.
Right, yeah.
You just reminded me of something. I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but I want to talk about it a little bit. Marketing.
Yep.
I saw, and this again, I'm assuming it's quality information, but I only know as much as I know on social media and stuff. But they were going through the most unhealthy drinks. And a lot of the names on the list were what we would expect. Coca-Cola, Red Bull, Mountain Dew, like these things.
Yeah.
There was one on it that shocked me because of the marketing. Naked fruit juice was the number one least healthiest drink on their list. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that's one of those where the more I'm learning, the more I'm questioning.
Right.
Because that's one I remember. So I used to work retail at Garden Swords for years. That's how I paid my way through college. And I would walk down to City Market, and I was on a budget, broke college kid, and I'd probably get some rotisserie chicken and like a naked, like their green machine, to think I'm getting my fruits and veggies.
Yep.
First of all, and I know we're not going to solve all this, but we're fed there's such differences between things that are marketed as healthy that aren't.
Right.
Because my guess would be that those juices probably are loaded with sugar.
Exactly. And then they add extra sugar to the bottle of juice.
Right. Yeah. Let's just add even more and more and more.
Yep.
Just rules of thumb or your perspective, even your approach on how you kind of differentiate, because I think that's something that a lot of well-meaning parents and humans in general fall into, where we think we're making a good decision.
Right.
We've been marketed that this is healthy or whatever. Any tips or tricks of how to kind of differentiate
what's healthy and what's not?
Yeah.
Yep. The number one thing is just turn over the package and look at the label.
We have to read.
You do.
Dang it.
That's my secret hack. Just turn over the package and look at the label. And if there's a bunch of words that you can't pronounce, it's probably not good. So that's the number one thing to do. And I actually started teaching my daughter that probably around age 6. We can look at the label and see what's in there and know that, maybe this has apple juice in it and carrot juice and, I don't know, whatever. I'm thinking about your naked green thing, kale juice.
Because even on the label says, in here there's a banana,
Right.
2 apples, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like almost too good to
But
be true.
then you have to be a little bit of a detective and look at the actual ingredient list and see what else is in there in addition to what they're telling you.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah.
And so general rule of thumb would be just things that you can't pronounce, stuff that like kind of looks
Yeah, if
foreign.
you see food dyes in there, different additives, preservatives, sometimes those things are okay. But if there's a list of 20 ingredients on there, whenever it says, you know, this is green juice, then you're like, really?
Right.
Is this really good for me?
Yeah.
So,
Instead, just grab a real apple.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been trying to have our kids have like apples and oranges and stuff as treats.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've been, we're trying to avoid soda. And so we drink LaCroix.
Yeah.
And we call it soda.
Yeah.
And it's like a little treat for them.
Yep.
Seems to be working. It's interesting how maybe that's a marketing tool. But,
Yeah.
If I say that it's, whatever, that it's yummy or a treat. Or
Right.
like, if we call our LaCroix soda, they're pumped on it.
Yeah,
They don't
exactly.
care. They'll have their
I don't think my
soda.
daughter had a soda probably until, I don't even know, the last few years. And now it's like on occasion.
Yeah.
Mainly because going to Europe, every meal, they're like, here, would you like a soda?
Right.
And so you're like, okay.
And to your point, all things in moderation.
Right.
We need to live a little.
Yeah.
Like it,
Yep.
we do have all these amazing, things,
Right.
handy.
Yeah.
We were talking off camera about running.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I'm on, especially a ultra run,
Yeah.
like if
Yeah.
I'm running far or a real like in endurance mode effort,
Yeah.
I've been trying to be pretty intentional about my diet and my my health before and after.
Mm-hmm.
But full transparency, during it's all out the window. And
That's
like
the
last
beauty
week,
of trail running, right? You get to eat. It's like a food fest.
yeah, I was eating Oreos and
Yeah.
drinking Coca-Cola and
Yeah.
whatever. I'm curious because you're obviously incredibly fit and active and healthy and things like that.
Yeah.
Are there any times when that goes out the window for you? Like, do you, when you're running those long distances, do
I
you eat
think
whatever you want?
I do, because I feel like your body is utilizing that energy right then.
Yeah, okay.
And we need it, and it's a quick burst of energy. Even if it's sugar, jelly beans, Oreos, whatever, we're using that energy up so fast that I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
I can guilt-free eat my aid
Yes.
station Oreos.
My thing at Silverton last year was the pickles,
Oh yeah.
just because I was craving salty. So I don't remember. It was like around mile 20-something, and they had pickles, and I was just like devouring them.
Let's talk about running a little bit. We're
Okay.
going to come back to nutrition,
'Kay.
but once you start talking about running, I can't help but
Yeah.
dive in a
Yeah.
little. Talk to me about your running career. We were
Okay.
just kind of talking off camera that we're both sort of somewhat new to the trail
Yep.
ultra space, but I noticed that you're a member maybe of, I think it's called Trail Sisters.
Correct, yep.
What's that? Tell me about Trail
So
Sisters.
Trail Sisters is a national organization, maybe even in other countries, I'm not sure. But anyways, there are different chapters throughout different cities. So we've started a chapter here in Durango, Trail Sisters, and the reason that I love it is because being new to trail running, I was very intimidated to be out on the trails on my own, and was kind of intimidated to run with other running groups because knowing that they were faster. So Trail Sisters is about including everyone, so anyone can come out. It doesn't matter what pace you are, we all stay together. And it just opens people's eyes to just the beautiful place that we live and just exploring trails together and not feeling out there and being alone. And it's a great group of women that can get together and share stories, and trail running is so much more fun whenever you have somebody to talk to.
So much more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you guys run you all stick together.
We do.
Too. One of my favorite things about trail running is that, like
Yeah.
the camaraderie. I at Silverton last weekend, I never even turned my headphones on.
Yeah, I
Just
didn't either.
Chatted.
Yeah.
The road running, I will always be special to me. I love it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is, but it's so different. It's headphones in, music playing loud. I'm running as fast as I can for,
Yeah.
trying to kind of drain the tank.
Yeah.
Trail running, I love the community of it,
Yes.
the camaraderie, and like
Yes.
the. I'm gonna give my wife that info. We've
Yeah.
been doing Trail Tuesdays.
Oh, okay,
Her and
nice.
I, and
Yeah.
running. I was telling you, she's training for her first full
That's amazing.
marathon, but knowing that there's kind of that like inclusive,
Mm-hmm.
community of, and I especially like the fact that you guys commit to sticking together.
Yes.
Because the trails are, it is what it is out
Right,
there.
yeah.
You want to have some people with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you're starting to run further.
Right.
I wouldn't want my wife like running, real far distances on
Right.
single track trail by herself. You just never know what could.
Yeah,
what
so
could
it can
happen
be
out there.
challenge whenever everybody's at different pace, but we, at each junction we stop and wait for everybody.
Yeah.
And we try to have multiple leaders, like a slower leader and a faster leader.
Right.
Doesn't always work that way, but it's when you go out with a big group, this is more of a social thing, and it's not about getting a hard workout.
Right.
So
going out to have fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you have planned for runs coming up? Any goals? Anything on the horizon? I think we're talking about a 35K.
Yep. So Crested Butte 35K is coming up in end of September. I may do Mountain Marmot again. That's always just a fun one, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then next year, if I get in, I'm planning on Grand Traverse.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I kind of took a year of just shorter races this year. We had a bunch of family travels, so I didn't want to commit to having to train far and long whenever we were traveling.
Right.
So, yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to worry about our diet when we're traveling.
Yes, for sure.
So coming back to the nutrition side of it, because I think and it's just because they're so tied together,
Yep.
and I'm just so fascinated with that. Another thing I've been really interested about lately is supplements and like the validity of them. In fact, speaking of my steep learning curve, you're going to be shocked with this, but I'd never even messed with electrolytes until this year.
Wow.
That's how steep my nutrition learning curve has been.
Yeah.
I was running full marathons.
With no electrolyte?
I would like whatever they had,
the aid
but
station.
never was I intentionally, like I'd go running and bring water, but not electrolytes.
Right.
Because I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So you're talking to a guy that's like really learning a lot over
Yeah.
the last year.
Yep.
But to illustrate the fact that the worlds collide, so much, and supplements I think is something, again, kind of we talk about marketing
Yep.
and how much we don't know. Electrolytes is one I've definitely noticed a huge difference in how it makes me feel, like being intentional about my electrolytes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Educate me on supplements. What do we need to know? What should we avoid? What's worthwhile?
So I love to say that we have to start with food, because if your diet is crap, then you can't take a supplement that's going to make it any better.
You can't out-supplement your way out of McDonald's.
Exactly. But if we are eating a clean, healthy diet, there are definitely gaps in our nutrition that we're missing, just from the way that our food is processed these days and the way that our soil is not as fertile as it used to be. So that's where supplements can come in. As far as from an athlete perspective, I think first, electrolytes are amazing. I love protein supplementation for those that struggle to get in enough protein, and I feel with women that's probably the number one thing that women struggle with.
Yeah.
So a good quality protein powder is always good. Also magnesium. That's the first supplement that I recommend to all clients typically, because it's like it's good for muscles, it's good for recovery, it's good for all things. I call it the miracle mineral.
Magnesium.
Magnesium. Do you take that one?
Not individually.
Okay.
I believe there's magnesium in my electrolytes, and I actually think there's magnesium in my protein.
There is magnesium in electrolytes for sure. Magnesium, potassium, and sodium.
Oh, I'm thinking about maybe potassium. I'll have to check.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that one down.
Yeah.
I'm not just taking magnesium. I do take it's like a nighttime drink.
Is it, I'm drawing a blank on it now. I can see it in my head.
It's, this one's from BPN Supplements, and it's called like Peak Sleep or something like that. It's kind of a chocolate flavor, and I'm pretty sure it has magnesium in it too, but I'm going to double check.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, magnesium for sure. It'll definitely help with muscle contraction, relaxation, that kind of thing, and helps with sleep as well.
Yeah. What about reds and greens? I've wondered those are something that I can't like physically feel a difference in reds and greens.
I don't know what you're referring to.
So I've got
like beet juice and green juice?
Yeah, like powdered reds and greens for I've been having them in the morning sometimes. Right. I'm a little bit, I don't know.
If it makes you feel good, do it.
Okay.
I don't know how much of it's being absorbed. So that's the whole thing with supplements, is it depends on the quality of the supplements to see if it's actually being absorbed or not being absorbed. So that's a big one. Most people always ask me about multivitamins. Again, that's another one that I like to actually have people do labs to see what you're deficient in before we start just giving you a pill for all these different things. I do find, though, that most people, even living here in Durango, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. So that's usually one that can be really helpful.
Do you recommend supplementing vitamin D by getting outside or by taking it?
I do. Outside for sure, but still, many times we're outside and we're either A, covered up, or we're wearing sunscreen, or we're running early in the morning, so we're not really absorbing much sun. So that's another one where I don't like to just say, here, take a vitamin D supplement. Let's get a lab test done and see where you are, and see what gaps we need to fill in.
Yeah.
Because even me, with being in the sun so much, I don't absorb vitamin D very well, so I have to take a supplement for that.
Interesting. Yeah, just because of your skin type? Just because of how...
I don't know. I think it might be a genetic thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So some things are genetic.
Yes, for sure.
Which is totally... Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Endura Life. And, and obviously you've got a passion for this to kind of step out of the promotional products, marketing, kind of corporate world.
Yep.
Why Endura Life? I want to hear your kind of the story behind deciding to make this a full-time thing and, really pursue it from a business perspective.
I think for me, after my daughter was born and all the years before thinking I was being super healthy, trying to follow all the diet trends and the diet fads and thinking that I was doing all the right things, and then really my body kind of started breaking down. So during training, I wasn't recovering. I kept getting injured. I wasn't sleeping well. I had digestive issues, all these different things. So I started to try to look at the bigger picture and think, well, maybe I'm being fed a bunch of false marketing things, and I'm not really as healthy as I think I am. So that's why I went back to school, really, so that I could learn to be healthy for myself. And that just ignited my passion to help others. Because, again, nutrition is so confusing and so conflicting. Just like you said, you can look at one thing on social media and think that, oh, I should do this, but then you're going to look at something else and it's totally going to contradict it. So I wanted to be able to try different things on myself and then be able to share my experience with others and help others learn to fuel their body and feel well. So that was really the passion behind it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, throughout the years, I've continued doing school and different things and just to further my education.
Perfecting the craft.
Yes, exactly.
Is that because I want to learn more about that idea that you thought that you were, being healthy or whatever, and you were noticing these things.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that and some of the differences between the stuff that you've learned since then.
Right, because, in years past, how it was always like, eat less, exercise more, eat less, exercise more. So I was kind of following that, or you would follow the diet trend of no carbs, or low carb, or then it was keto, and just all the different diet trends that are out there that people try, and really that can lead to underfueling or overfueling if you're, either under or overfueling. So I was definitely underfueling, which led to injuries and those kind of things. So then learning to fuel your body optimally and learn that you can actually recover from a workout and feel good and do it again tomorrow. You can sleep better. Your digestion is better. It's just you don't know what you don't know. And whenever you start to fuel your body better and start to feel better and have better energy, it makes all the difference.
Yeah. And I love that reframe of thinking about food as fuel and the differences that it can make you feel. And that's part of a lot of the reason why I've kind of been on this journey is that I'm learning some things that make me feel really good.
Yeah.
And I want people I care about to feel good.
Exactly.
I want everyone to be happy, healthy, and feeling great. And so I relate to that so much of because it is so true. And I understand so much how for so many people you can slip into these unhealthy lifestyles or think that you're being, doing I relate so much to that under fueling idea, because in your mind you're like, this will make me lean and I'll be I'll be faster or whatever it might be, and instead you're just starving and tired and
cranky, and then you have to be there for your kids and all you want to do is put them to bed
and maybe we should just eat a little bit more,
and then you would feel better. I also like to take the approach that everyone is unique and different, so what works for me is not going to work for you. And I feel like with social media and just marketing in general, we market to the entire population. And yes, this might work for one individual, but it's not going to work for your best friend or your sister. So we kind of have to look at your unique lifestyle and your goals and adjust nutrition based on your goals and your lifestyle.
Yeah, interesting. How often are you working with people that want to lose weight versus gain weight? Is that ever... I'm just kind of curious the difference.
I would say it's probably 80-20. Lose weight is the majority, but usually whenever I'm working with somebody and they want to lose weight, we often have to have them increase their calories before they can lose weight.
Interesting.
Because they're eating too little, so their metabolism has shut down.
Oh. See all these unintended consequences.
Right. So we think exercise more, eat less, but then your metabolism is like, oh, but I'm starving. I need to hold on to everything that I have. So everything that we think that we're doing right is actually backfiring on us. So in order to lose weight, we actually have to increase what we're eating.
Yeah, because then your
metabolism will wake up, and then you start burning the food that we're eating, and then you can add muscle mass, and it's just a process that we have to go through.
Yeah. My lifelong goal now is to be strong and fast.
Right.
I want to lift heavy and run far.
Right.
And so it's at least letting me eat a ton.
Yes.
Which is helpful for me.
Right, right.
But I understand that a ton of like how crazy it could get if you're under fueling.
Yep.
And I didn't even think about how it could impact other things like your metabolism and your sleep. So you talked about kind of this idea of that there's not one formula for everybody.
Right.
As a professional, what's sort of your approach to that with people? I mean, is it consultative? Are you taking? I mean, are you testing stuff? Like how can people kind of start to get an idea of what might work for them?
Yep. So typically whenever I start with a client, they fill out a health questionnaire just to start off. And then we go through it one-on-one together and uncover some other things that maybe they haven't written down in the questionnaire. And I find out more about their current diet, their lifestyle, their training plan, all of that. And then I start to give them suggestions on things that they can work on based on their goals and their lifestyle. So I like to take the approach of we give you a couple things each time to work on and we build on it. Because if I say, Ben, I need you to go eat 200 grams of protein every day, drink 200 ounces of water, make sure you're sleeping 8 hours, and all these different things all at once, you're going to look at me and think I'm crazy. It sounds fun, like, yeah, okay, I'm in. And after like 2 days, you're like, I can't handle that. So I like to take baby steps and we build on it. So we like to habit stack, basically.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and that probably helps. And I'm interested in your perspective of sort of the difference between, because you touched on a little bit earlier, I'm going to just call them fad diets and behavioral elements. And maybe I'm making assumptions, which I wouldn't want to do, but I'd imagine there's a fair amount of kind of psychology involved in your line of work as well, of like, these fad diets, or whether it's food marketing or whatever it might be, versus lifestyle changes.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So a lot of times, we're fed all of these different marketing schemes, and it's, ingrained in our head that we have to follow this way because this is the way that other people are doing it that works for them. So we have to break that thought process in our head. And a lot of what I do is mindset coaching, because a lot of times...
I forgot that you do that. Of course, there's psychology.
That's one of the biggest factors that, as you know, as an ultra runner, that's one of the biggest factors that plays into all things that we do in life is our mindset. If we don't believe we can do something, then we're never going to be able to achieve it. So whether it's, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining muscle, training for a race, if we have these limiting beliefs in our head that we just keep letting play over and over and over, we're never going to reach our goals. So we have to stop the limiting beliefs and focus on a positive mindset.
Yeah, I knew that you did mindset coaching, and then I forgot when we were talking. I was actually telling my team this morning, it was I love running ultras because I learn so much every time. And I was telling you off camera, this last Saturday was seriously almost type 1 fun for me. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah.
But I went into it intentionally about that. Like, I'm going to look up. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to run my race. I'm going to chat with people. And I would, I got in the zone, and I kind of turned into everybody's hype man when we're running, and I'm pumping people up and whatever. It was so fascinating for me to see. There's a few people that I passed that were like struggling, and hey, you're doing so good. And it's like, well, my knees are hurting, or I've got this or whatever.
Yeah.
And how it was, I shared with my team this morning, I always have takeaways after ultras, and this one was, it was so fascinating for me to see people experiencing the same thing, but experiencing different things. Like we were all on the same run, same course, same pain, same distance, whatever.
Yep.
And some people were hating it, and some people were loving it.
Yep.
And I honestly think it was our mindsets.
100%.
How incredibly powerful that is.
Mindset is such a powerful thing.
We're going to have to do a whole nother episode on mindset coaching,
for
okay?
sure.
Because
Yeah.
I will eat that up, and I might even be able to contribute a little more to that one than just the nutrition one. Talk to me, though, about how those worlds collide. What the combination of how people's mindsets and their nutrition, diet choices, where do those, just talk to me about how the two relate.
So many times I can talk to people on our very first session when we're just going through the first health consultation, and I can tell this person struggles with mindset just from the first conversation, and know that that's the number one thing we have to work on. So again, we create these limiting beliefs in our head, and whenever we have them, then it just takes away from the goals that we're trying to reach. So I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but we have to start with breaking those limiting beliefs and start, as silly as it sounds, we have to have positive affirmations that tell ourselves that we can do whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And once we start to believe that, then the other things start to fall into place.
So when it comes to nutrition, just believing that we can make changes is...
Exactly, because many times, for instance, limiting beliefs are, well, I don't have time to meal prep. Or, which I don't meal prep, so I'm not suggesting that people do that. Or I don't have time to have my pre-workout fuel, or I don't have time to pack stuff for fueling during my 20-mile run. Well, do you want to feel like crap during your run, or do you want to take 5 extra minutes to, pack something? So changing that, I don't have time to, okay, I'm going to wake up 5 minutes earlier, and I'm going to prepare what I need for the day. And maybe it's not even a positive affirmation, but just having that small little shift in your mindset to say, okay, I can make a change of 5 minutes so I can feel better throughout the day.
Yeah.
Versus, no, I just don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, at least in my experience, it's been, I have to almost stumble into it once. Like, I have to learn once that how impactful that thing was or how much better that, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I can say, okay, that's going to be a priority.
Right.
Whether it's, like, now I'm finally time blocking my runs.
Right.
Finally, it's on my calendar.
Yes.
Non-negotiable. Or, we got to do it on the weekend to prep for the week or whatever it might be. But like, I think you can almost create these sort of positive feedback loops. Like, I don't know. And when it comes to diet and nutrition, I can do these things today.
That are
I can
going
do
to
them tomorrow.
Right.
Or, I can commit to this for a week.
Right.
See how much differently I feel or whatever.
Exactly.
When you're talking with people, what's the measurement of success? Is it how they feel? Is it how they look? Is it the scale? Is
I
it
think most people that I work with, it's either the way they feel or performance. And usually those go hand in hand, right? So if you start eating better, then you're going to have better energy, which is going to help you perform better. Whenever you perform better, then you're going to feel better, all around. So I think typically it's the feeling and the performance. Some people, it's the number on the scale. I don't like to gravitate toward that because I think that's just a tool and a measurement, but so many other factors play into that.
Do you weigh yourself?
I do.
You do.
Not daily, on occasion, because again, it's a number at
Part
a point
of
in
a
time.
measurement.
Yep.
Not the measurement.
Right.
Part of many.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think when the last time I weighed myself was. I did weigh myself right before my 100-miler, and I was skinniest I've ever been. I mean, but I was doing 60, 65-mile training weeks, and I mean, it was wild. So I was definitely, that was a result though of running a ton, not necessarily diet.
Right.
And it was more of a curiosity. But
were you lifting weights as well?
I started doing it less, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. So when I went into I think it contributed a lot to my injury. I have always lifted 2 or 3 times a week. My background's in football. I mean, my exercise used to only be in the weight room.
Right.
And I don't know how to describe it other than like I started craving strength. I just had this
during your training,
just all the time. Like I just felt weak. Like I needed to lift, and even my legs. I wanted to like squat and pull-ups and push-ups. Nothing crazy, but I I was feeling different, even though my running was going well. And then I got injured, and it all kind of fell off a cliff. And I don't know that the injury was from lack of lifting, but now I'm lifting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'm running those days as well. But I'm running less. Like today, I murphed, so I did push-ups, pull-ups, and squats, and I ran 2 miles. Like nothing crazy. But I'm feeling strong.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how like paying attention to how you feel versus the number.
Right.
And because I was leaner than I've ever been.
But you'd also probably lost a ton of muscle.
Yeah. And who cares if you're not feeling optimal?
Yep.
Do you lift and run?
I do.
What's your kind of what's your workout routine look like?
I try to lift also 3 days, sometimes 4 days a week, but I also teach fitness classes. So I teach Pilates, and so I don't consider that my workout.
That's a bonus.
Yeah, that's the bonus. So I need to take a full rest day, but I'm not good about that. So usually Sundays
we have a little bit in common.
Yeah, so usually Sundays are like, I'm just going to take the dog for a run, or maybe I'll just go to a lifting class. But so yeah, active rest. Yes. So I run almost every day, and I lift 3 to 4 days a week as well.
And it works for you, that combination.
Although I can tell whenever my body's like, take a rest day.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. Like once we're in tune with our bodies, that's when I was training for my 100-miler. I was craving weights. Like I could feel it.
Yeah,
and I had this plan that I was so sticking with, and I'm grateful for it and the whole thing. But I think in hindsight, I could have ran less and lifted more and done better.
Yeah,
and then I haven't even worked in a nutrition plan.
Right.
So I'm excited to see kind of like, how all of these things can come together. Yeah. How does your nutrition change based on your, like if you're coming into a race or I don't know if you've got, like if your goals kind of ebb and flow with your fitness, but how does your approach to nutrition change?
So definitely whenever our miles increase, we have to increase our calories. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people, especially women, to wrap your head around. Because we have to fuel our workouts, we have to fuel after for recovery, and then often we're hungry throughout the day, but people think of hunger as more of a weakness, and that's just a signal that your body is telling yourself that you need fuel in order to keep doing the things that we want to do, right? So I definitely increase my calories whenever I'm in big training blocks, especially carbohydrates. That's another misconception that many people are afraid of. No carbs, no carbs, no carbs are bad for you. And I'm not saying it's a misconception. I'm just saying that doesn't work well for everybody.
Right.
So I definitely increase carbohydrates, especially before and, around long training sessions are the main things. I'm also a big stickler about protein. So I try to make sure I get a certain amount of grams of protein per day. And I got off of kind of tracking. I go through little periods of where I track just to check in again and see where I am and then take time off. But I just started tracking again just to make sure I'm taking in enough protein.
Yeah. When you started tracking, were you on track, over, under?
Just recently, whenever I started back, I was a little under, not where I was whenever I very first started. But it's just always good to see where you are and have a baseline to see where you are and see where we need to improve.
Yeah. So just talking in terms of realistic tips and trips, because most people, don't get to do what you do for a career. And I don't know, most people aren't as obsessed as we are.
Yeah.
But if somebody wanted to get a little bit intentional about their nutrition and, maybe we're definitely nowhere to the point where we want to count calories or track our, whatever. What things should we pay attention to? What, the average person listening that wants to just start being intentional or, paying attention to things, what would be your advice on the things to pay attention to?
Yep. So I say at each meal, first of all, make sure we're having 3 meals a day. A lot of people do fasting. If that works for you, that's great. But in the meals that we're having, I like to look at your plate and make sure that you're having something from every macronutrient group. So protein, carbohydrates, and fat at each meal. Because a lot of times we'll skip the protein or we'll skip the fat thinking that we don't need it. But in order to have a balanced balanced meals and make sure that we're getting all the nutrients that we need, it's important to make sure that we have protein, fats, and carbohydrates at every meal.
Protein, carbs, and fat.
Yes.
3 times a day.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Give me examples of those carbs.
Yep.
And fats, actually. Protein, I can wrap my head around.
Yep.
Meat.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes foods can fall into more than one category. So, for instance, if you're going to have a steak for dinner tonight, that would be protein and fat. So you don't need to add another source of fat to your meal in that instance.
Even though butter makes it taste better.
Yeah, exactly. So carbohydrates, I like to focus more on complex carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Sweet potatoes, rice, quinoa, that kind of thing. Anything typically that comes in a package would also be a carbohydrate. And then fat, I like to focus on good, healthy sources of fat. So avocado, butter, grass-fed butter, healthy oils, avocado oil, olive oil, those kind of things I would say are healthier fats.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So worst case scenario, or not worst case, but like something that we could be intentional about.
Yep.
Protein, carbs, and fat
Yep.
in every meal.
And then for an athlete, I always like to make sure that you're fueling your workouts before and fueling after. Because how many times have you gone out? I did this a couple weeks ago. I decided on the cuff that I was going to do a long run because it was supposed to rain over the weekend. So I went out with no fuel, no water. I had water in the car. So I did one loop and I was like, I feel great. I'll just get a drink of water from the car and go back out for another. I felt like crap for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I did not practice what I preach. So you have to sometimes, just like you said earlier, learn the hard way and then be intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is it's so funny because it's so much easier said than done. And when we say it, it sounds so like, of course we need to, pay attention, but life starts happening and we're like, here, I can do this one today or whatever it might be. Yeah. What about things to avoid? Because I think for a lot of people, protein, carbs, fat in a meal, awesome. We also, though, have all of these access to this easy stuff. If you were to just say, and I'm talking about like the masses, general population, baby steps, give me the baby step program to maybe if you cut out this or that.
Right.
That in terms of like, I think what I'm trying to get at is what simple changes could have the most impact on, normal. You think of your average American diet.
Yep.
What things could we eliminate that would make the biggest impact?
I think one is sodas, and especially even diet sodas.
Is diet bad?
Yeah. Just because it says diet on it doesn't mean it's good for you.
I have a Diet Coke every day.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, that could be one thing.
I might not give it up. I don't know.
That's okay. Whatever works for you. But that would be one thing. I think another one for adults in America is alcohol. That's the crutch, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I don't drink alcohol, but I drink it very minimally. And I think we just get into this routine of every evening we're making dinner, we need to have a glass of wine, or with dinner we need to have a cocktail. And if we would just eliminate that habit and replace it with something healthier, maybe you're having a LaCroix instead, that's your treat. I think that's going to help improve sleep. It's going to help with all different things. It's going to reduce your caloric intake, obviously, because those are just empty calories. So that would be number 2. The next one I would say is just avoiding empty calories that we don't need, that aren't giving us real fuel. So a lot of the convenience foods that we talked about earlier, that packaged foods that are just full of added sugar, that could be another thing that we could probably just minimize in our diet to help us feel better all over.
Yeah. How do we pay attention to sugar? Because I've started to recently be a little bit more intentional about high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
Because I've realized that it's literally in everything.
Exactly.
Like I'm trying to remember. I think we were making hot wings. It's, something like that you would not think has sugar in it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, the sauce has
high fructose
loaded
corn.
with high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
Tell me about that and what people should be paying attention to in terms of sugar. Is sugar all bad?
No, and I'm not saying sugar is all bad. I'm just saying a lot of extra added sugar is not beneficial for us. So sugar that naturally occurs in food is totally fine. Like milk naturally has sugar in it. Fruits and vegetables obviously have sugar in it. But if you're looking at something and you're looking at the ingredient label, just like you said for the hot wings, if it says high fructose corn syrup, we could probably avoid that and choose something a little healthier. You can probably find that same type of sauce without the high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
So I think if you can just start to look at ingredient labels, and if number 1, 2, or 3 ingredient on the label is sugar, probably look for something different that's comparable, that's not loaded with extra sugar would be better.
Yeah. What is honey and like those other natural
I think
sweeteners?
those are totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah. And not in huge quantities, but we don't want to have a cup of honey on our cereal in the morning or
right.
whatever. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm get ready to be vulnerable here and just shoot me straight. You gotta tell me the truth here.
Okay.
I have at least 1, probably 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day.
That's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
think about all of the calories that you're burning throughout the day.
Yeah.
So I think for you, that's a good source of fuel.
good.
Yes.
Well, you just made my day because I thought you were going to tell me I needed to cut that out and replace it with something.
No, I think that's totally fine. And especially that's a good thing to have when you're ultra running as well. It's a good portable snack that you can take with you.
Yeah.
That'll give you good fuel. I remember getting to the top of California Pass last year, and I had some friends that camped up there so they could see me, and they ran out with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I was like, I don't normally eat peanut butter and jelly, but this is delicious.
Yeah. They actually had peanut butter and jellies at every aid station this year.
Really?
And I grubbed down on them.
Yeah.
I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, drinking Tailwind, and I ate like probably 10 Oreos.
Oh, yeah.
At every aid station, I was like, give me a couple of Oreos. I don't know why, it's just what was.
But you felt good, right?
Yeah.
You were fueled.
And that's it's one of the reasons I love ultra running, is it kind of like strips distractions away and you listen to your body. Because I've had other races where I only wanted salt. Like and you just, it like lets you get in tune to your body.
Right.
Like if it's either, you just go with what you want.
Right.
And sometimes you want this thing, sometimes you want that thing.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating how that changes.
Right.
Like when I ran my first ultra, I thought I would want a lot of carby sweets, I'll call it. Like we had, peanut butter and jellies, and like we had these little like oatmeal ball snacks,
energy balls.
Yeah. And I wanted chips.
Yeah.
And bone broth.
Yeah.
And
because your body was
potatoes.
low on sodium.
Yeah.
Did you take electrolytes?
I did take electrolytes.
Okay.
Yeah. At least, I'm trying to remember. I definitely had Tailwind and like Gatorade and stuff.
Yeah.
That might have been when I really learned. Oh, and I had salt pills. So yeah,
right, yeah.
I took electrolytes, but I was my first time into it, and I actually think I started that race dehydrated, and I played catch up the whole time.
And a lot of times we don't take into factor the altitude. So, and I don't know what your 100-mile race the altitude was, but I noticed a difference in Silverton. Getting up that high, I was definitely craving salt.
Yeah. Isn't California Pass remarkable?
So amazing. And last year they had to actually remove snow.
No
the
way.
night before. They were going to have to reroute the race because there was still snow up there.
No way.
So they had snow removal the night before.
And then, so it was the normal course.
It was the normal course.
There was like a lot of snow up there.
But even what's the lake at the top? I forget what it's called.
I don't know what it's called.
It was frozen over still.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that again?
Maybe.
You should.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
After running around the high country up there, I am.
Yeah.
That's
so
all I want to
beautiful.
do.
And it was super fun because my husband, all of his college buddies came in to go jeeping the Alpine Loop.
Oh, cool.
So they all came in. I don't remember which side, but they were at the top of California Pass coming down as I was coming up. So I had a whole entourage of people cheering me on, which was super fun.
That is the best.
Yeah, it was great.
I was telling my wife, so, men rarely get compliments. Like, I'd probably get a compliment every few years,
right.
And I was running down and somebody in a Jeep said that I had nice arms. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, I'm going to ride that high for the next year.
Exactly.
Made my day. But those the atmosphere and the excitement and all that up there it's just incredible.
It is.
You should run it again. It'd be fun
fun
to run it with you a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Tell me more about like what's in store for you. I know that I know you well enough to know that you're very driven. Even the fact that you went to school right after having kids and you've started your own business and you do all this running and ultras and joining the Trail Sisters and all of these things. I have to imagine there's some stuff on the horizon for you, or goals, or where are we headed?
I know. From a nutrition standpoint, I feel like nutrition is always evolving and changing. I've really been focusing on middle-aged women, I guess you could say, and going through perimenopause and postmenopause, or perimenopause and menopause. So I've really been learning a lot more about that. And as you asked before about supplements, I feel like we kind of need to have lab testing to find out where we are. So I'm considering doing some more schooling to be able to offer lab testing instead of having to send someone to somewhere else, and being able to interpret them to better help people understand what they need. So that's kind of in the back of my mind of what I've been researching and considering doing next.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
If you were to give everyone like one piece of advice for, you know, I don't know, somebody's listening, they're like, okay, I'm ready to start, you know, my health wellness journey. What would you say kind of first thing to do? What would be your tips or tricks, or even just like words of encouragement for folks wanting to get a little bit better?
So find one thing. What's one thing that you know that you feel like you could improve? What's one thing in your health or your fitness routine that you feel like if I could just do this one thing, everything would be good or everything would improve? So find that one thing, identify it, and start working on that one thing. And when you master that thing, then let's add on from there. So instead of trying, like I said before, to do a whole overhaul, let's find the one thing. So it's maybe we just need to get up off the couch and start moving our body. Maybe we go for a walk after our meals. Maybe we are not drinking any water, we're just drinking sodas. So let's start to incorporate water into your daily habit. Maybe we need to focus on reducing stress and improving our sleep. So find the one thing and just focus on that one thing until you feel like you've mastered it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then pick another and another and another. Yeah.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to do it all at once.
Exactly.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Because those things really do make a difference.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
It's awesome.
And a lot of times in our fast-paced society and being business owners and having a family and having all the obligations we have, we just get so overwhelmed by all the things that we put ourselves last. So it's important to prioritize yourself because we can't be good for others if we're not feeling good ourselves.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the word of it. Because that, until recently, the weight of that hasn't, you know, stuck for me. I've always been one of those guys that, like, I don't know, I've almost worn it as a sense of pride. Of like, I'll sacrifice for my kids or my wife or my employees or my business or whatever. It's like, until I learned the better I am, the better I am for them too.
Yep.
You know, like if I'm happy and healthy, I'm a better dad.
Yep.
I'm a better business owner. I'm a better boss. You know, all of these things. And I think it's so, especially for moms, it's so counterintuitive of like, you've got to take care of yourself. In fact, it's selfless because then you're better able to take care of, you know, everyone else, your loved ones, your kids, your responsibilities. I love that you brought that up because that is so something that I want more people to be aware of like, unless you're full, you can't pour into others.
And that's another mindset thing too, that many people don't believe, you know, they don't understand that. But whenever you can make that mind shift and start to focus on that one thing that's going to make me better, and you start to see that you feel better, and then you start to notice the other things in your world improve. It takes just consistency, new habit and consistency in order to see improvement. And once you start to see that, then I think it'll all start to fall into place.
Yeah, and I love mentioning how important the mindset is with that too.
Yeah.
So pick one thing.
Yep.
Have the mindset that you can do it.
Right.
Know that by doing it, you're going to be better able to serve others, and then stick with it.
100%.
One thing.
Yep.
We just solved all the world's problems.
I know.
Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I just want to tell you, first of all, I know how busy you are. So I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Because that's very valuable.
Yes.
I also want to just thank you for the message that you're sending, the work that you're doing. I mean, even like the Trail Sisters thing and, you know, coming here and sharing some of this knowledge that I know is so valuable and that you've worked so hard to get to where you are.
Yes.
I just want you to know how much I appreciate it because people need people like you in their lives.
Thank
you know, good influences with good information and good intentions, and it's refreshing. So I'm grateful to know you, and I just want you to know to keep doing what you're doing because we need more of it, and it's just great to get to sit and bend your ear for a little while. So I have a gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
They're my Inspire by Example shirts, and I hope it's the right size. We can decide afterwards. But
I love it.
Because you really are inspiring just by living the example that you're living.
Thank
so
you.
don't stop doing it. Keep being a force for good in the world. And thank you so much for letting me pick your brain for a little while. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking with you.
It's awesome.
Yep.